I Love Mortgage Brokering, Episode 7.
The most inspiring stories from today's most successful mortgage brokers. Join your host, Scott Peckford, on I Love Mortgage Brokering.
Hi, Broker Nation. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest today, Dean Larson. Dean is a mortgage broker and owner with Compass Mortgage Group based out of Kelowna, BC. He's been a mortgage broker for 7 years and his office does over $100 million. Dean is absolutely killing it. Dean, are you ready to rock?
Absolutely.
Cool. So why don't you take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Well, let's see. I've been a mortgage broker for around 7 years, and I've been a broker owner for about 4.5 years, I believe. And I've got a family of 5, one grown child, and a couple still living at home. And we've got a brokerage with around 16 or 17 people, I believe, to date in our organization, spread out across Alberta and BC. And I am primarily based out of Kelowna.
And so you started out just brokering your own deals and then discovered that, hey, you're pretty good at deal. I've known you for a while, so you're good at dealing with people and managing people, and you're likable. So you've been able to grow a pretty good business and in a market that for a while was actually kind of tough. How have you been able to do that?
Well, the truth is that for the first maybe 5 or 6 people that came on board, it was somewhat by accident, and through, I guess, maintaining a reasonably good reputation, people approached us about wanting to work with us. And as time went on, I eventually thought about the fact that if I can recruit half a dozen people without trying, maybe I should explore the idea of building an actual brokerage. And so for the past year and a half, approximately, maybe 2 years, I have been actively growing our brokerage and growing our footprint across BC and Alberta. It started out by accident, but it eventually started to seem like a worthwhile thing to pursue.
Well, your footprint is definitely getting bigger, so that's a good thing. Let's rewind the clock for a second. So everybody that's in the mortgage business, most of us came from somewhere else. So how did you get into the mortgage business? Like where did you come from?
Well, I actually moved to the Okanagan from Edmonton, Alberta, in 2006, working with a large company actually. But once I got here and I started to become concerned about how I was going to be able to live here long term if something changed with the job that I was currently in. I've always been a numbers guy, and I've always been a people person, a salesperson, I guess, and through some contacts, friends that I had out of Calgary who had also recently got into the mortgage and the lending business, I learned about mortgage brokering and got the idea that maybe I should pursue that as my future career while I was building my presence in the Okanagan. So I went out and got my mortgage broker license.
And so the reason I'm going to ask this is because I know a little bit about your history. So when you initially got into being a mortgage broker, did you quit your job and become a mortgage broker, or what did you do there?
That's a great question. So to begin with, actually, I did do a little bit of an overlap while I still had another job and was essentially part-time brokering while I learned my way around the business and I got a feel for how it works. And I had a flexible job where working from home where I did have the flexibility to kind of pursue other things at the same time. I did that for a little bit less than a year, and I, in the meantime, built websites and built an online marketing strategy for my mortgage broker business because I frankly didn't know that many people in the Okanagan where I was living. And a combination of friends and family, as most people find when they start off, I got mortgages there, and then a successful web marketing business. I ended up building a relatively successful business within a year, actually, and then went full time at it. I was working with the Dominion Lending franchise for a year or two, and eventually worked with the Mortgage Architects franchise, which you're fairly familiar with, and from there moved on to opening my own brokerage.
Right, and I haven't looked back. So one last question. So what is your split of your business like that you're currently kind of doing? Maybe 2 questions there. What you're currently doing, like A to B, and then your office, because I'm trying to get this sense of what, I'll explain it to you after, but yeah, how does that look for you guys right now?
So sorry, just to make sure I understand the question. What split are you referring to?
It's your A to B business, so A business versus B business. What sort of percent? Like how's that look for your own personal book, and then your company? How does that look?
Yeah, it seems to be an ever-changing thing. Currently, the majority of my personal business is A business. I'd say in the first couple of years it was mostly B business, like 80-20 B to A, and it's become 80-20 A to B now. And that's probably the same throughout our organization. It's just been the way that it has evolved, but we're actually strategizing on ways to increase the B part of the business, as I really believe that is where the future of being a successful broker is.
Yeah, that was kind of a loaded question, but I know that in these interviews that I've been doing, I've been hearing more and more people say that they're seeing an increase in the B side of their business, even if they're not actively trying to do it. So it feels to me like there's definitely opportunity for brokers to solve a problem and help a client at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So my next question is, I love to start with a success quote. So a quote that has impacted your life or business, and can you share with us a quote that's really impacted you?
There are two that I keep in my mind regularly. One of them is always tell the truth, and you'll never have trouble remembering what you said. And that's just been a key thing, just to help maintain honesty and integrity. And the other really simple one is treat others as you would like to be treated. I would say those are the two that I keep at the top of my mind most of the time.
So of those two quotes, can you give me an example of when you've applied that in your business and sort of an outcome that you got from it?
Well, when I'm dealing with clients, or even when I'm dealing with referral sources for business, I try to put myself in other people's shoes as much as possible when I'm communicating and when I'm thinking about things that they may be feeling and going through. And I spend time thinking about all of my active clients in that way, and it ends up allowing me to proactively communicate certain things to them that I can realize that if I was on the other end, this is what I would like somebody to explain to me, or this is what I would like somebody to tell me, or this is a point in the process where I would really like somebody to reassure me as to what's going on in the process. So it's an ongoing active thing that goes through my mind as I'm managing the client experience and even the experience for the referral sources.
Right, and yeah, it's true. I love that. Actually, I've heard that before, but not in a long time. Always tell the truth. You never have to remember what you said. That's a awesome mantra to live by, especially in our industry. So
absolutely.
So can you tell? I also find sometimes for me, I've made some mistakes over the years in business, and I find when I look back, there's always a lesson in it. Can you share a time that's something that you failed at and the lesson that you'd learned?
Well, I've actually had a couple of failed businesses and partnerships in the past, and particularly when I think about working with other people and working with partners in running a business, it's very important in my mind now that everybody understands what their roles are, specifically what's expected of them. Some of the confusion that can come in working as a team, and even some of the hurt feelings, comes from not everybody understanding both what their roles are and what is expected of them. So in building a team, we really try to make it clear to everybody what their job actually is in terms of communication, in terms of the responsibility of their coworkers and their managers and their clients. So to summarize it, just everybody understanding their roles is really key. Yeah,
and so I guess can I push you to be a little more specific? I think that's a great example. Remember your role, but can you give me an example of a time that maybe everybody didn't know their role, and you don't have to share names or anything, but what the outcome was of that?
Good question. I know there's been times with assistants and with collaborative teams, say on mortgage teams, where, for example, someone might think that their job is specifically to communicate with the client, or somebody might think that their job is specifically to get an approval from a lender, when in fact all of our jobs are not just any one of those things, but our jobs are ultimately to make sure that the client gets the mortgage that they're satisfied with, and really just comes away from the whole experience with satisfaction. All of those other things just comprise that, but the ultimate role is to make sure that we have satisfied clients. And and particularly in the assistance, in the sort of what we would call our underwriters or funders, there's, we don't necessarily need people to click the button. The role is ultimately to make sure that referral sources and clients go away satisfied and happy and feeling positive about the experience. And that's not one specific experience, but that is regularly needs to be instilled in all of us.
Yeah, the value of realizing that the relationship is the most important thing, and whoever is working on, especially when you have a team built, you have a team approach to dealing with a mortgage, and somebody, you just need to know who's going to stay in communication with the client and the realtor and everybody else that's involved, and keep everybody in the loop so there's no stress.
More specifically, you can get the client the best mortgage on the market, but if the experience is stressful and they were never comfortable through it and they didn't feel like it was handled that well, they might go away not even recognizing that they got the best mortgage that was available on the market, but they will recognize that they didn't have the best experience. On the other hand, somebody can go and deal with a bank and somebody that they've dealt with forever, who they've got a good relationship with. And if the experience was flawless and seamless and that they were made to feel comfortable all the time, they can go away having maybe what we would consider a poor mortgage in market standards, but go away feeling really great about the experience. And in that case, even though maybe from our perspective they lost because they didn't get the best mortgage, the person that dealt with them or the bank that dealt with them ultimately won because that client felt great about what happened.
That is awesome. I love how you said that. That's a perfect way to explain the process matters a lot, and how the person feels about the process, not just what you think about it, and the product. We kind of sometimes can get so focused on the product, but the product is important, but if you don't do a very good job of managing the client and their expectations, then you really aren't building a long-term business for yourself.
Absolutely.
So the next thing I've noticed about people, successful mortgage brokers, is they always have a system and a process, a sales system, a follow-up system, a renewal system. And I also noticed that they're also willing to tweak their system or make adjustments in order to get better results. So can you share a specific example of a process or that you've tweaked and what you've changed and what kind of outcome you got?
I would say one of the things that in the early days that frustrated me a little bit about the process is feeling like once I'd done my part, let's say in sending all the documents to a lender, that I was essentially done. And yet lots of things can fall apart afterwards if communication between the lender and the lawyer doesn't go that well, communication between the lawyer or solicitor and the client doesn't go that well. So I have one of the things that I've tweaked that is, I think improved the customer experience is making sure that we are communicating more proactively with the solicitor, making sure that we're dealing with solicitors that communicate proactively back to us so that we recognize when there is a hiccup in the process or something that needs to be dealt with proactively. We can deal with it rather than finding out at the 11th hour when the deal is supposed to close that it's not working properly. So another level of communication after, technically the mortgage broker's job might seem to be done, but staying involved in the communication after that point has I think solved a lot of problems for our clients.
So can you give me an example of with the communication with the lawyer? So how are you guys doing that? How are you making sure that happens every time?
Well, so an easy example would be, you complete your documents with a lender, and the lender says, okay, file complete. And at that point, you will assume that you should be able to assume perhaps that the instructions have gone out to the lawyer. And then, maybe a couple weeks go by and you will get a call from the client who says that the lawyer has not. This has actually happened. The lawyer has not received instructions yet. And this is a very simple example, but then you'll go back to the lawyer and find out that something got missed, or they sent it to the wrong lawyer, or they got the fax machine wrong, or a typo in the email, or whatever. So the simple change to that process, and I'm sure all mortgage brokers should be doing this, and I don't think all of them are, but it's just to simply, once you know the file is complete, follow up with the lender to confirm that they've sent the instructions, and then make sure that you communicate with the lawyer to make sure that they've received the instructions. And it sounds really simple, but it's not something that's inherently built into the mortgage process.
No, and I've often thought too, like if the whole process goes really, really smooth, so let's say you do a really good job, you manage your expectations, you get them a good mortgage with a good, the right product, and then the last thing that happens is everything at the lawyer's office is kind of a gong show. That's the last thing they're going to remember. So I agree.
Absolutely. And whether it was your fault or not, it's not really the point. And that actually is another good point. Is don't try to figure out whether it was your fault or not. Just recognize that no matter whose fault it is, it still reflects ultimately on you in the eyes of the client.
Right, they don't care. And what I found happen sometimes in the past is everybody points the finger at everybody else, right? And so there's and it doesn't really, who cares? It's just fix it. Let's just fix it, and how do we not let it happen again?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think, what one habit have you think has made you successful over the last 7 years that you've kind of went from part-time brokering to owning a pretty good-sized mortgage company?
Well, the one habit, and I don't know if you call it a habit or not, it's a strength and a weakness. But I tend to be impatient and somewhat intolerant of anything that negatively affects my clients. So I always want things to be done sooner than just letting the process flow. And I am persistently adamant that everything not only should be done quicker, but maybe even just done a little bit better than what the standard process is. It's an inherent personality trait that can frankly cause frustration for me at times and maybe undue stress. But when your clients feel that you are doing everything possible to look after them, and when you are following and going that extra mile to make sure that the little details are looked after, ultimately you do end up with a better process and a better customer experience than perhaps just letting things flow. And there's a tendency that a lot of people find that where they just once things are off their plate and they've done whatever they feel their job is, and it's now on someone else's plate, and it's their job that they can wash their hands of it. And that sort of intolerance of that type of thinking actually is something that I can't really help myself to behave. I guess I behave in a way where I never let go of my part of the job. I guess is a short answer.
Yeah, that's good. And so have you ever taken one of those Strengths Finders tests?
Yes, I have, and I'm notoriously impatient is one of the things that I found out. And frankly, when I've been in job interviews before, where they ask you what your weakness is, it's one of those things that comes up in every job interview. And years past, I actually used to use that as my weakness, because frankly, it is a weakness and a strength. And whenever you're answering that question to an employer, you do want to find a weakness that can be also spun around as a strength. So that's a funny little tidbit that I shouldn't share about my past interviewing tactics.
Now you do the interviewing. You don't need to. I don't think you're going to be looking for a job anytime soon. So,
that's right. So anybody that's out there that's ever going to look for a job, remember that when they ask you what your weakness is, tell them you're impatient. Because
it's a good one. Okay, another thing I've noticed too, a lot of you read the magazines and talking to brokers that this idea of diversifying your income, and so. What do you have an area that you're going to focus on the next year that you or one that you're having success with?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had success in various areas of that. Actually, it's funny that you bring this up right now. Our brokerage right now is embarking on a couple of major launches, and they're far enough along that I can talk about them now. One of them being that we have set ourselves up as a life insurance agency, and we have partnered up with a very large national life insurance, call it an umbrella agency, with thousands of agents across the country, and we're putting together a very formal life insurance referral process, because life insurance is part of our business, and we're trying to make it so that we're offering the clients the best possible solutions out there. And by registering ourselves as a life insurance agency, we're enabling our agents to get a percentage of the very large premiums available through the life insurance market, as well as ongoing trailer fees. So this will be separate from standard life insurance. They're going to pay us on the rest of it, as well all of the other products that are associated with life insurance. So that's one of the things we're trying to create for our agents, to have a residual income and multiple streams of income in a related business. And We are also involved with a private lender in terms of helping raise funds, which also has great finder's fees and great trailer fees, and raising funds in terms of still involved with the mortgage market and private lenders that have mortgage investment corporations that solicit investors' money through RSPs and TFSAs. So we recognize that multiple streams of income, especially when you're in a job that can have fluctuations to it, is a way to maybe make your income just a little bit more robust and consistent.
Right. Yeah. I think what you guys are doing is brilliant. The insurance and mortgages and debt, they kind of go together like peanut butter and jam in my mind. They're very well suited. When somebody takes on a large level of debt, they definitely need to be looking at their insurance needs. And so you guys having that internally and allowing your brokers to be able to participate in that is brilliant. And I think it'll help you grow your company for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with all this stuff you got going on, you got your own mortgage business, you're running your brokerage, you've got the insurance thing, you've got the alternative business. So how do you balance running your busy mortgage practice and family? So you give us a tip or some advice on being able to keep that stuff in check. You do have a very you have great kids. I've met them, and good family. So any tips there?
Well, you do have to have boundaries, and you do have to maintain your priorities. And you and I have talked about this in the past. There is a way to work smart enough and proactively communicate enough that you're not spending your evenings and weekends reacting to things. And if you are proactive and efficient in the hours of the day that you do want to work, you can prevent potential surprises that might come up in the hours of the day that you don't want to work. And beyond that, it really just comes down to priorities. My family will always come first, and as long as I have done my job during my work hours, I don't really ever have to feel bad about saying, now I'm going to spend this time with my family. There are times, and I've experienced, I'm willing to admit in the past, when maybe I have not done as good of a job as I could have in the daytime hours and in communication with clients and lenders. That's typically where the stress is in the evenings and weekends, and you're putting out fires and trying to calm people down or whatever. Those have come from the times when I wasn't efficient and wasn't proactive enough during my working hours. But if you do manage your day properly, you really can have the strength and be in a position where you're able to put boundaries around your family and your personal hours.
Yeah, I agree totally. Boundaries are so important in all areas of life, but in particular, it's so easy to guys wired like us can just keep working and working, and when you have kids and stuff, you got to fit that stuff in and make time for it. So now we're going to move to the rapid fire questions, and so these questions you can answer with a little bit shorter answer if you like. So what do you think is the number one thing holding back most mortgage brokers from being successful?
The number one thing, well, that's a good question, and I don't know if I can call it a one thing, because I believe it's different for every person. There are people out there that get too good of a handle on the technical part of it and don't recognize how much of it is a sales job and how much of it is about convincing your referral sources and your clients that you are a person that they can have confidence in. So there's focusing on the wrong thing. You can focus on the technical part of it, but not be able to convey your competence to clients and referral sources. And you can also focus too much on the sales component and never really get a great handle on the technical parts of it, and maybe on the inner workings behind the curtain of how the mortgage and banking world works. And I think in order to really be successful, you have to develop skills on both sides of it. And I've seen people who are on one side or the other, both ways, that have failed because they only got that one side. So it's really about having a well-rounded approach on both the sales and the technical side.
I had someone tell me once, actually, that reminds me, someone tell me once that if you're naturally inclined to want to focus on the technical side, then you probably need to be spending time on the sales or the people side. And the reverse is true. If your natural tendency is to want to be the people side, then you're probably, the area that you need to work on is probably the one that you actually don't naturally gravitate towards, so that you actually are evenly, you can do both instead of just you end up being lopsided. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you have an internet resource, program, software, or something that you use to make your business more efficient and successful?
Actually, I'll tell you about a product that I've used since the beginning of getting into mortgage brokering, and I have not met another person in Canada yet that uses it. I've shown a few others, but I'd like to share it because I believe in the product. It's called allclients.com. It's an online CRM and contact management program. It is web-based, monthly fee type software, and there's the specific page besides the usual CRM things you can do, mass email, things like that. There is a page called Loans by Stage, which is essentially a dashboard that keeps track of all of the mortgages and all of the leads that you have on the go and which stage they're at in the process. And it takes them right from, initial contact to got an application, working through documents, signed and paid, and you click a button to move them along through the different categories. And when I found it, I believe it changed my business just in giving me the type of sort of screen that works for my brain, at least. To every day I can look at this and I can say, okay, I've got these people in this column, and I now want to move them to the next column, and that is my goal. Every day, your goal is to move that ball 1 yard farther, and this is a dashboard that almost looks just like that. You're just trying to move the clients from one column to the next column. Anyway, there's lots of tools that I use, but that's one that I really think that every mortgage broker could benefit from, just in terms of mentally being able to keep track of all their deals rather than spending all their day having all their deals running through their mind, trying to make sure they haven't forgotten about any of them. So. Yeah,
you actually mentioned that to me many years ago, and it is a pretty cool looking program. So next is what book would you recommend our listeners to read? Is there one book that you've found that's really impacted you, or that you were like, man, this is a book that more of us need to be looking at?
There's a book actually that a local realtor gave me, and this would focus more maybe on somebody that wants to have some inside knowledge of the technical side of how banking works, and it's called Towers, Gold, Feet of Clay. I believe that was what it was called. Towers of Gold, Feet of Clay. It's a book. It's on the history of Canadian banking, right from the initial part of Canadian banking up until present day. And present day, this was written in the 90s, I believe, so it doesn't quite take us to present day. But the reason I say that is because when you're speaking to clients, if you really do have an in-depth knowledge of the behind-the-scenes workings of banking, banks, credit unions, mortgage companies, how Bank of Canada, the Bank of Canada Act, how the different governance models work, it gives you a perspective and a way to talk to the clients in a way that maybe nobody's actually been able to talk to them about before in terms of just understanding banking. So I'm a big fan of it. It's maybe a little bit of a dry read for some, but if you really want to get a handle on the technical side of banking, it's a great book.
Yeah, I've never actually heard of that book before, so I'm going to look that one up. So where do you think our industry is headed right now? Where's the opportunity?
The opportunities, I believe, right now are really in that, like we talked a little bit about at the beginning, is the B mortgage space. The A mortgage space is becoming tougher. Pre-2008, everybody had lots of equity, so when people needed to borrow money to start that business or pay off debts or invest in various investments, it wasn't that hard for them to find equity through regular banking. That has gotten so much more difficult in the past few years, where even a regular A deal is not an A deal anymore, that understanding private lending and that B mortgage space is a way for mortgage brokers to start offering more value again. Besides the fact that there's products available there that aren't available through the banks, it also, the clients that you're dealing with in those stages of life will depend on you and really learn to trust you when you solve those problems for them. Right now we're competing with banks, and clients are becoming frequently presuming that they're worldly and educated enough that they don't necessarily need the help of a mortgage broker. And whereas when you're operating in that B space and finding them that money that they desperately need for that investment or that business, and you know the sources to get it from, you have a way stronger value proposition.
Right. Yeah, I know. That theme has been popping up a lot lately, so I agree with you. And you're a guy who's going to definitely take advantage of that. So one of my favorite questions is, if you woke up tomorrow, let's say, and you just sold your business, and you move back to Edmonton. First of all, I'm sorry for your luck. And you decide when you got to Edmonton, you're like, hey, I want a mortgage broker again. So what would you do? What would be the first 2 or 3 things you would do? You can't contact your old clients. Say you sold them to someone and you have a contract that you can't contact them. So you got no new clients and you don't have contacts. So what are you going to do to start to get going?
You know, it sounds funny because my personal web presence right now is not very strong, and it's probably the product of having built a business and a referral network where I'm not as dependent on it anymore. But I would probably do the same thing I did when I started originally and built a strong web marketing campaign and a strong web presence. I believe that can be the springboard to get your business going, and beyond that, it's just networking. The best thing about being in the mortgage business is literally every single adult that you meet is a potential client, because everybody's either going to buy a house or already has a house or some other form of real estate. And so if you're networking and meeting new people and more people every day, you're constantly meeting potential new clients, and there's not that many businesses that are like that.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good advice. And you did a good job starting out with using the internet to kind of you get your business going and build your confidence and learn the business. I mean, that's where you're able to transition into it so quickly. So are you guys hiring right now?
Absolutely. We are in a vast we're in extreme growth mode. We're looking to grow offices in the Lower Mainland this coming year, and continually grow operations in the Okanagan as well, and also in Calgary and Edmonton, where we've currently got presences, but we're trying to expand. So absolutely, we're definitely hiring, and we believe that we have some unique offerings and some unique ways of looking at and building the business that make us a fun place to work.
Awesome. And where can people find you?
People can find me at deanlarson.ca or just through the phone, 22508692200.
Cool. And yeah, thanks, Dean, for taking the time to share with us today. And I've known you for a while, and your insights are great. I love what you're doing with your company over there, and anything we can do to help you out will be awesome. So have a great day.
Thanks, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
The most inspiring stories from today's most successful mortgage brokers. Join your host, Scott Peckford, on I Love Mortgage Brokering.
Hi, Broker Nation. If you enjoyed this interview, please take a minute, visit iTunes, and rate this podcast. If you do, you'll get 3 deals in the next month. Okay, that's not true, but I would really appreciate it. Also, I want to invite you to join me on a quest. After every episode, I personally take 5 minutes and think about one thing or one idea I can use to improve my mortgage business. I encourage you to do the same. Over the next 12 months, I plan to do 100 interviews and make 100 improvements. I'm going to track these to see how they impact my business and, more importantly, my bottom line. Visit ilovemortgagebrokering.com and post in the show notes what one thing you plan to do differently after listening to this interview, and check out what other brokers are sharing. Also, if you'd like to connect with me, fire me an email at scott@robyourbank.com. I love hearing from passionate mortgage professionals who are interested in improving their business. Until next time, rock on.